I'm Dean Newland, and welcome to Leadovation. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. This podcast is dedicated to the art and science of innovative leadership. Through insightful interviews with industry experts, I bring you cutting-edge strategies and experiences of innovative leadership, helping you think differently, act strategically, and achieve remarkable results. Join me as I provide insights and tools that empower you to make smarter decisions, forge meaningful relationships. Welcome to Leadovation. Intuition isn't woo-woo. It's who we are. In this episode of Leadovation, intuitive consultant Jenn Cohen reveals how reconnecting with your innate first sense can transform how you lead, decide, and live. From Hollywood boardrooms to personal reinvention, Jenn shares how balancing logic and intuition brings confidence, clarity, and calm even in uncertainty. Learn how to stop dismissing your inner voice and start using it as your most trusted guide. Jenn, I am so glad and excited to have you on the show. Those of you who've been sort of following this podcast know that it started off as the business of intuition. And we changed the name a little bit about a year ago, but the core, for me at least, has always had that throughput around intuition being such an important part. So let's just dive into the deep end of the pool. You know, we could tiptoe around like, what is intuition and how do you define it? We can certainly do that. But I want to ask a kind of a question, which is this, that if we have a mind and if we have a brain, and those two things are not exactly the same. The brain is something that is sort of the receiver, and the mind is something by which we are getting something that is being given to us, which is maybe outside of our own being, right? Where does, in your perspective, where does intuition fall? What is it? Is it self? Is it come from ego? Or is it come from something else? Or is it a combination of both?
Let's dive in. I love this.
Let's dive in. Let's roll up our sleeves.
Yeah. Hi.
I didn't want to pussyfoot around with you. I figured we could do this.
Absolutely.
And then we'll figure out what is God.
What is the meaning of life? Totally.
Exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love it. So, in my opinion, intuition is more of a collective that is outside of our physical body. So it's a sense that we're all born with. In fact, I like to think of it as our first sense rather than our sixth sense. It's the sense that we were born into this world with. And then, unlike other senses, what our culture tends to do is strip this sense from us rather than enhance this sense of us. And so as we go through this physical world, we are constantly being reminded of this sense through the ego, through our body, through our brain. But it is programmed into us, and we have the opportunity to place ourselves and the responsibility to place ourselves throughout our life in places to hear it. It's not our job to hunt it down, but we have the responsibility to put ourselves in places to hear it.
I love it. Do you feel that when we are connecting to our intuition, that we are connecting to our true home, and however you define that, the true self?
Yeah.
Or is
Absolutely.
this some sort of a woo-woo thing that comes in that we channel from someplace else that's not us?
No, I believe it's us. And I used to, really lean into the word woo woo. And when we do that, we kind of poo poo our woo woo.
There's the title, ladies and gentlemen, of our new book. Don't poo-poo the woo-woo. Brought to you by.
Yeah, and so there's
Awesome.
there's some judgment and there's some criticalness around that, and it's the culture, and oh, that's woo woo, and I'm going to kind of poo poo it, and so it's ourself. It's ourself, and we've heard this over and over again. Just be yourself. Just be yourself. And there's times, I think, in all of our lives when we were ourselves and we were ridiculed for that, or we were punished for that, or we were made fun of for that. And that's a deep wound that we try to not repeat, and we attach to our true self, where intuition, if we can remind ourselves, and again, I like to say our first sense, that this is who we were when we came into this world, and then we start to accumulate layers of ourselves to assimilate.
To fit in.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're getting into ideas around reincarnation, and that we haven't been in this existence just once, that there's something pervasive. If that's a belief system then that we could share, why do we keep forgetting who we are? Why do we continue to come back to have to be reminded? Why can't we just remember?
So I do think that there are things that we tackle in other lives that when we come back, and if you believe it or not, but our souls and this energy never dies, right? We know that
Right.
scientifically.
Right. Yeah.
So there is an energy, probably, or a lesson that I have learned previously, that I'm not attracting that energy in this life anymore. I just don't remember it. But there are lessons that I need to continue to learn, that have led me to this physical being this time around.
So now my mind starts to think, and my wife and I talk about this actually over dinner, if you can believe it. We have some interesting
Amazing,
conversations. I can
amazing.
only tell you,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother podcast in and of itself. But there's a sense of almost layering of existence, and I guess to be in this physical body is very dense, very dull, very heavy, very constricted, restricted, lower vibration.
Mhm.
And then, as you describe intuition and this first sense of self, that to me seems to be a much higher vibration on a tonal level, really, literally, on that.
Mhm.
And it seems like the human being is trying to find a way to have both, to integrate the spiritual, intuitive, we'll just call it intuitive self, into the physical being of which we are now inhabiting.
Yeah.
And it's a little schizophrenic.
Hmm.
I would think. I think that sometimes for me it is.
Mhm.
I can sense that my brain will go back and forth, left to right brain. I can sense when I am being intuitive, and it's a different experience to when I'm being of this plane, of this world, and getting stuff done,
Mhm.
and needing to survive and thrive in that. The main time, almost like having two different realities, that one will have more emphasis than another given the situation.
Sure, sure. And I think that that's so common. And where I love to work with people and to talk about is the left brain, right brain. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And that's a lot of what our lives have been taught. This is how you do certain things. You turn that off when you go to work. You're very organized, you're very prepared, you're very critical in terms of like judging, and like this person, not this person, but seeks difference, like this is right, this is wrong, not necessarily people. And what I have learned and discovered is that there can be a balance between the left and right brain. And when we can learn to balance that and notice the signs of, oh man, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm seeking differences more than I like to. I'm worried about the past or fearful of what's to come in the future. I am completely out of my right side of my brain, which holds our intuitive side, which is our creative side, which is our nonverbal side, which is our expansive side. And
Mm.
then I can practice some tools in order to bring me back into balance. I kind of see it as a seesaw, and we just want to have, let's get on at the same time, and we can just, kind of work together, because in this physical life, that is, I mean, it's very hard to stay balanced 24/7. I would
Yeah.
be, probably living on a mountain, solo, just kind of chanting 24/7 if I were able to do that. And there are amazing people that do that for us. But I choose to live the life that I do, and it's those cues that are able to put me in balance and my body in balance.
We've our traditional, our oral histories, our religious histories have placed such a strong value on that spiritual, intuitive side. You just mentioned going on a mountain and meditating.
Mhm.
Um, my wife and I were in France and saw some incredible churches again, reminded monasteries as well, just the practice of being in that level of one's existence, right? And we've
Yeah.
we've really created a whole culture, Western culture and Eastern cultures around the ascension, the transformation of the individuals into this higher plane of existence. And we also, at the flip side of that, we've seemed to also say that the physical is not where you want to be. You need to transition into this higher self. That's what your spiritual practice is all about. That's why we pray, why we go to church, why we follow Jesus and other gurus and so forth, is to get out of this existence into something greater than ourselves.
Hmm.
And so it almost feels like the physical realm, this space, is not purgatory, but it's not the ultimate destination on our train ride. We want to get to someplace else, right? So follow with me for a second on this idea that what can the physical space, world, existence, plane provide us that the intuitive spiritual existence cannot?
Yeah, great question. First of all, the fact that we get to live on this physical, beautiful world that we get to live on is a miracle. This is where Mother Nature is. This is where we get to walk out and touch a tree, smell a flower, walk on a trail, dip our toes in the ocean, jump in the ocean, feel the rain. This is the most magnificent time.
Hmm.
And when we are able to connect with our intuition, with that spiritual side, what it does is it allows us the opportunity to appreciate what is around us on this journey here on this physical earth. It's not separate. It's not trying to get to somewhere else. This is
Hmm.
it. And what our intuition and all of that allows us to do is to appreciate this right now and not be so, "Oh, I want to get there and I want to get there." Everyone, will throw around, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, until you're able to really practice and through meditation or through whatever brings you back to your spirit. Until you're able to do that, you're not able to fully stand in that moment, and you're
Hmm.
not fully able to appreciate, because you're kind of always thinking, well, I got to do this, I got to pick the kids up, I got to write this email, I've got to do this report, I've got to da, 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 da. But and it's not the moments of, for an hour straight I need to just be in appreciation. No, it's not that. It can be a full-bodied appreciation. I'll tell you where I live. I hear at noon there's church bells that chime
Mm,
12 times. And then there's a little like song that plays after. And I was out back and the sun was shining the other day and I had my puppy and I just stopped and I just thanked the universe. I thanked myself. I thanked that moment. And that
mm,
carried me for the remainder of the day
mm.
because it was just fully in that present moment and it shapes what you see. So intuition, again, like it can give you the ability to and the awareness to see things on this physical earth.
Yeah. I've thought this before, but I wanted to bring it up now. What you're saying to me is it's not two separate locations, so to speak.
Mhm.
Now I'm in the physical plane. Now I'm meditating, and then now I'm in a higher level, intuitive, spiritual place. And now I got to go back and pay my bills, and now I'm up to here. And like we're almost living this schizophrenic, bipolar
Right.
life, right?
Hmm.
What you're seem to be saying, and I agree with this, but I just wanted to call it out from a context perspective, is it's
Sure.
yes and it's all of it.
All of it.
The physical and the spiritual are the same. It's the awareness to be able to tap into both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't bifurcate yourself. You know, I say this when I speak with people, you know, in jobs. Well, no, you cannot compartmentalize yourself when you go into work. You
I want to
can,
get
yeah.
Yeah, I want to get to that work piece in a
Hmm.
second. You
Hmm.
reminded me too, Jen, of your experience of being able to hear the church bells and your dog and the backyard sunshine.
Hmm.
My wife and I were just down in Cannon Beach, and we've been going to Cannon Beach, Oregon, for as long as we've known each other. I don't know how many times we've been down there. I can't tell you how many times I've walked that beach, back and forth, and it's sort of like our spot. For the first time, I heard the beach, like the breakers, the waves coming in. The waves that were further out were deeper in tone, and the waves as they were coming closer up to our feet were higher in tone. And so I literally felt like I was standing in front of a symphony of sound, and I could almost identify different instruments as that wave over there versus that wave over here. It was just like, whoa, that's the first time
Amazing.
after 30 some odd years we've been going to this darn beach, and I finally heard that. It was a
Yeah.
cool experience.
It's amazing. That's amazing. That's beautiful. And the beach is so sacred. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, having your
Yeah.
feet on the sand. I mean, it's so healing. It's so
Yeah.
grounding. And the waves, yeah, I mean, they're such a metaphor for our lives and what you just shared. Yeah.
Yeah. And the waves, made me think about breathing. It's the in and the out, it's the exhalation and the inhalation.
Yeah.
So let's talk about work. Let's talk about that thing called business that we go to, and we interact with other people. Talk about how one can bring intuition into a work environment that may not completely embrace it. We still have evidence based decision making. We still revere subject matter experts. We still look at spreadsheets to determine whether or not we should do something or not. How do we bring that intuitive self into out of the closet and into the boardroom?
Yeah. Yeah. So I worked in the entertainment industry for 27 years, and I worked on kind of both sides of the houses, and you can almost think of it as your brain. I worked on the production side of the house, which housed the writers, the developing, the artists, and they're very creative and they're very tuned in with the right side of our brain, you know, where intuition is, and that's where they lived.
Hmm.
And then I worked on what so many referringly called the suits side of the house, the corporate side of the house. And you could tell anytime that the suits were coming into to Hollywood, to the creative side of the house, I mean, there would just be a collective groan. And so I moved to New York for the last 10 years of my career, which if you're an intuitive person in New York, there's a lot of energy.
Oh, yes.
And it was essential for me to experience that. And I worked within a sales division.
Hmm.
So that money driving and business, I learned a lot. And I can tell you I was an outsider very quickly.
Why?
How I thought, how I tackled problems. I very much about energy, and there is energy to money. Lynn Twist, if you're familiar with her, she wrote a book called The Soul of Money, um, and how sales would extract information, how they would push through, the speed, the rapidness. Again, very contradictory to an intuitive kind of way of being. And then you would find some salespeople that were very intuitive about who they approached client wise. And you could see their numbers were very good, but we found each other. Vibrations and energy finds each other. So there were people. I'm not saying it was all terrible, but it took some time, and it took some time because I wasn't going to change who I was, but I would run up into walls. I mean, very early on, I remember someone higher up basically telling my boss that he had made a mistake in hiring me, and my boss, being who he was, let me know that conversation happened. Not the greatest way to motivate somebody,
Yeah.
again, it did motivate me in a way, which because of my calling, I'll just say it like that. And the position that I was hired for, I could see holes in it. And what I ended up doing is being a liaison between the creative folks out west and the sales people in the east. And I was kind of that, mushy part in the middle that could translate what both sides were trying to say to each other. Again, both intentions were good. It was to succeed. It was more that, the actions of how that they were moving forward were so disruptive to one another. There was, the East Coast had like this, the West Coast so hippie, they're so laid back. They don't do anything. They get off early, blah, blah, blah. And, the West Coast is like, oh my God, like the East Coast is so stressed out. They're blah, and that was a macro for the microcosm that was happening here. And so I rose pretty quickly through the ranks because the West Coast loved how I could implement what the East Coast was trying to do. And their intentions were good, but it was fitting it into what the West Coast was trying to do and into their style. Same with West Coast to East Coast. And I attributed that to the fact that I'm a channel, and that I can, yeah, and that I can hear.
The plot thickens, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, yeah. And so there's this translation that can happen. And so I was able to translate very clearly between the East and the West, between the right brain and the left brain. And
How did you do that? Because unless you had an incredibly transparent, open, progressive culture whereby you could say, "Hey, I'm intuitive. Maybe I'm even a channel. I'm going to come at this meeting from an energy perspective, not what's on the agenda, whatever." Some might say, "Great," others may not. What was the practical way that you were able to do this that we would say, okay, let's sit back and watch Jenn and her work?
yeah, well, that's
And
the beauty of
what would that look like? I mean, or what would that feel like? You have a very strong energy, I can tell right now, but what would aside from that, other things that one could, when they're like, now the teacher comes involved in my head. Jenn, how do we do this?
Sure.
Like what's the how?
Sure, sure. So, and trust me, I stumbled through this because
Yeah.
I did not understand this when I first started. And then, what's beautiful about this work is people started to say to me, "You're so intuitive," and I was like, "I have to look that up. I don't even know what they're talking about." Like,
Mm.
I'm just like, I don't know. This is just what I do, and it was something that had happened through early stages of my life, but we won't get into that right now. But to answer your question, how I would never say, I'm going to channel you, I'm going to intuitive. It just wasn't that. It wasn't that company at the end here. Um, but when people would ask me about it, I would tell them stories, and then they could come to the conclusion that I was intuitive. But in terms of, like, let's say, if there was an issue or a challenge, what an intuitive can do, and there are going to be people that are listening to this right now, and they're going to say, "This is me." We can see the end goal. We can see the solution very clearly. I know exactly what's going to happen. And I could say this, I have many bosses, but I could say this to my boss towards the end. I'm like, let me tell you how this is going to end up
In terms of what it will if it doesn't change, or what it should be if it does.
in terms of what it should be when it's going to happen. So if something's
Okay.
going down the wrong path, I could say, let me tell you exactly what's going to happen here if we continue down this path.
Understood. Okay.
And then but if we course correct, let me tell you what's going to happen, whatever. And again, your bosses and managers, sometimes they want to go their way and they don't want to hear that. And a lot of times I would write it in an email to myself and put it in a folder, and then I would click it and I'd be like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And no one needed to know, but it was just, again, me to my intuitive self, to the universe, saying, I believe this. I trust this. I know what I'm feeling. I know what I'm hearing. And it doesn't matter that the science and the data isn't backing it at this moment. But I understand data is important and we need it. This doesn't override it, but it works together with it. And so, as an intuitive, when I would say to my boss, we'd be looking at a challenge, and I would say, okay, here's how this is going to end up. Let me go. And he's like, okay, you got it. You got it. I'll go. And then I could back out from that. So it instead of like the steps going towards it, it's almost like a maze where, like, instead of, starting at the start point of the maze, you start at the end point of the maze and go back to the start point. It's a little bit easier.
Hmm.
Um, and, and so through that way of operating, I could see who I needed to speak with. I could see the challenges. I could
Hmm.
see the way that I needed to get to that solution that everybody was going to be happy with.
Understood. So it may not be something that is blatantly obvious to everybody else. You were just able to cut through the noise and get to where you needed to be with the right person.
Yeah, and you have to
Yeah.
massage it along the way because there's egos, and but you're able to see it a little bit more clearly when you start that way.
Did you find that the organizations that you worked with slowly started to loosen their grip on the old way of doing business and be more open to an intuitive influence on decision making and problem solving?
I'll say during the heyday, like during the time I was there for 10 years, there was a portion of those years where we were really doing well. And then the company was bought and acquired again and acquired again, and the
Mm.
cuts and that's when the vibration really started to get out of whack.
Mm.
And that's when, we're selling, we just need the budget, it doesn't matter, people, we're cutting. And unfortunately that's still happening within the industry. But
Yeah.
that's also, it's not a personal thing. It's tough for some people, but how I saw it when it was time for me to get out, and I could very clearly hear that it was time for me to get out. I knew that there was something waiting for me that was going to be even more beneficial.
Mm.
So what I'll say is that yes, there were glimmers of time of more acceptance of intuition, but then there came a very rocky point where they're like, "We hear you, we don't disagree with you, but top down, we're trying to sell this puppy."
Right. So many people in business and in the world at any given time certainly deal with fear. You were
Hmm.
mentioning you knew you needed to move on. Somebody else might have some sort of reason for leaving a company, but the coefficient of that would be the fear that could come along with it. I'm dealing with people right now that are obviously considering something like that. And of course, the thing we're working through is the fear. What I've hearing you say, and what I've also noticed myself, and I want to get your reaction to this, is that there's a certain level of confidence that comes when you rely on your intuition because you know you're not alone. There's something about, at least for me, because I'm very much a doer, and I like to see tangible results, and I'm also interested in security for the work that I do.
Hmm.
Um, and yet I'm very intuitive at the same time. And I notice that when I'm making a decision that doesn't tap into the intuitive side, the the experience could be one of fearful experience. Like I'm worried, I'm
Yeah.
anxious, I don't
Hmm.
know what's going to happen, what will take place. But if I sort of allow that intuitive voice to come in, my whole sense of fear seems to dissipate.
Hmm.
Um, I guess I'm curious to see if that's what you've noticed as well.
Oh, sure, sure. So awareness is the key. That's
Mm,
99.9% of it. When you are aware, okay, I'm fearful. Okay, well, now we can get somewhere. Okay, now
mm,
what are we fearful of? Okay, let's talk it out. All right, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, but that's really not a reality. Okay, I understand that there's fear there, but we can go back and allow our critical thinking and that side of our brain to say, I understand why you're fearful. I'm appreciative that you're bringing that up, but I got this. I got this now.
can fear be a voice for intuition?
Well, how I like to think of it is it's almost like a physical representation, like I'm fearful, or like a emotional representation of
Hmm.
something that I need to address. That my intuition is saying, in order to allow what message is coming through, we just need to dust this off. We need to have some space for you to receive this. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about from a sequence perspective that there could be an intuitive knowing,
Hmm.
which is one thing. And then that knowing might tell you, you need to do this. You need to get out of this marriage. You need to quit this job. You need to move across the country. You
Hmm.
need to have this conversation. And then the physical experience of needing to do that triggers the fear.
Sure, sure. So I'll give an example. When I was ready to move on from my job, I was probably ready to move on 3 to 4 years, no, 2 to 3 years before I did.
Hmm.
And there was that, but the money, but the perks, but the golden handcuffs, all of the things. Oh, but what am I going to talk to people about? Sorry, my puppy's like really
No,
going
the
crazy in
puppy
the
wants to be
background.
a part of this
Yeah, I know.
conversation. I can
There
tell that. Look at Deb. He's rolling around on his back or her back.
Her back, yeah. I know she's happy.
She's picking up on something.
Yeah, she's great. Um, and in those 2 to 3 years, I would have that fear, and I knew that it was coming, but it wasn't time. It just wasn't time, and
Hmm.
that's okay. But I could address. I'm like, okay, I hear you, and I need to go through some things. And and one of the things that I would say during those 2 to 3 years, when I was talking to someone, I'd be very frustrated. I would say, God, talking to these people is like talking to a wall. It's like talking to a wall, and I'd get angry, rah, 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 and I was frustrated. One time in meditation, I saw this image of myself come fully in front of me and look me square in the eyes and say, "It's like talking to a wall."
Mm.
But when I could hear that this was, it's like talking to a wall. It's like talking. It's me. It's nothing outside of me. I'm ready to move on, and I am trapping myself with the fear.
Hmm.
And that was the first step. And I remember calling HR, and it was just clear as day. I have to get out of here before I lose myself.
Yeah.
And then everything started to fall into place. And that's the trust of your intuition. But again, it's going through and saying, okay, I'm ready now. Whereas had I done that 2 to 3 years earlier, my body wouldn't have allowed me to. It would have been like, no, I'm seizing up. Like, so it's a balance, and it's listening, but it is always going to guide you. And during those 2 to 3 years, I learned a ton about listening to myself.
Yeah, that's good. You mentioned your body. I sometimes look at an organization that we get involved in as a body, as a entity in and of itself. There's a lot of individual components, which are called departments and people. But I will ask sometimes the team to say, let's just, obviously you have goals and strategies and visions, but what does the business need or want? What is it asking for? Not marketing over technology, human resources over sales, but what does the body of the business asking for? It's
Yes.
telling you something. Like if you have a sore back, your back might be telling you, I need more support. Your body also sends out signals in a business body that says, hey, I need a little bit of help over here, or we're not aligned with this other part of the body. And it's hard sometimes for people to get that perspective, but it's funny. I cannot not see that
I love that.
within an organization. It's just like it happens very quickly, and usually I try to find a way to translate what I understand into a language that somebody can hear.
Well,
You know,
that's
and the
just
other
it.
thing, yeah, and the other thing I think of is that all of this work that we hear about psychological safety and emotional intelligence and authenticity, you do storytelling, um, presentation skills, interpersonal dynamics. It seems like in some ways that all leads back to the true self. You know, the intuitive whole human being that gets to show up and be their complete self, um, to express their highest and best, right? And I think that's kind of what you're saying as well. So, is there anything that you might go back to the how-to stuff? Like when I did my podcast a while back, I had obviously to come up with some sort of how-to, because it's about that. And so I came up with presence, purpose, and play as three components to be thinking about when it comes to developing your own intuition. Presence being, the real word of being present, being here and now, um, being aware, and then purpose being about your intentionality in the moment, and then play being an ease, a flow, a relaxation around doing what you're doing. What is your way that you help people tap into their intuition if it's not something that they're familiar with?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I like how you phrased it. I don't get asked it in that way, and I don't actually speak about this process that I do all that often. So thank you. Um, it, I like to follow what I've created as I am, and it's IAAM, and it's identify. So when something's happening, okay, I've identified, okay, maybe my coworker just asked me something or did something that will really set me off. I'm just going to identify that. right?
Hmm.
And I don't need to actually do anything, but just identifying it is the awareness there. So identify. Now I'm aware of it. I'm going to ask my body later, probably. If you can do it in the moment, fantastic. But I'm going to ask what it's trying to tell me. And then the M is to start to mend that. And mending it can be, various various ways of doing it. But even if I, get agitated in a moment, I'll just say, I am, I am, I am. And it's kind of the mantra. So that's just a tool that, I work with people on, and like you said, just having those, little sayings to get you through in that moment, that starts to neutralize and allows, the critical mind not to go off and, they're going to do this. And then I'm going to, and then blah, 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 and have that, 10-minute imaginary fight in your brain.
Are you on a spiritual path? Aside from your intuitive self and this channeling that you do you have a, I don't know what you call it, religious or spiritual direction that taps into these other parts of yourself, or is it all the same? I'm curious.
Yeah, spiritual. Absolutely. So, I start every morning meditating, even with my puppy. You'd never know it right now.
Well, today.
but ever since the moment I got her, it's like we're gonna sit here and we're gonna just chill out in the morning, and she's awesome with it now. She looks forward to it. Like sometimes I'll veer off and she'll look at me like, wait, it's time to meditate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So that for me, oh my gosh, is hiking. And being outdoors. I live in a beautiful part of the country where I can go to the ocean or the mountains in the same day, in the same hour. I also, Mother Earth is her own spirit. And that to me, if we were to say, what's your religion? That's pretty much it. It's knowing that we are one altogether. And then writing, automatic writing has been huge for me in being able to. In being able to come back to myself and come back to my intuition and come back to the spiritual nature of what is trying to come through.
That's great. Well, how can people learn more about you, follow you?
Yeah. My website's probably the best way. It's Jenn with 2 N's, Cohen, Cohen, intuitive.com. And I'm also under the same name on Instagram. And, reach out, send an email. I mean, I can talk about this all day long, and I'd love to connect.
Do you do workshops, coaching?
Yeah, so I offer courses on the website. You'll see that I'm starting one up early next year, unlocking the power of your intuition, and also have specific ones for professionals and using your intuition in the workplace as well. Intuition in the industry is what I call it.
That's great. Great discussion. Nice to meet you. And say hi to your dog for us too.
I will. I know. She's really going. Sorry about this.
That's great. No, she had something to say. I don't know what it is, but she really wanted to participate.
She wants to go outside. She's ready.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all the best, and really appreciate the time.
Oh, it was a great conversation. Thank you so much, Dean.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to Leadervation with Dean Newlund. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com, or check the show notes. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. Transform your leadership success with Leadervation.